Disclaimer: this is a post-Marxist analysis of the anime industry. Viewer discretion is advised. The history of all hitherto society is a history of class struggle. Karl Marx. To be lawful or good, that is the question. For over 10 years, corporate streaming sites like Crunchyroll have sought to gain power by claiming moral authority over the anime fandom. The only thing keeping growth steady has been idealism, abstractions. They have ignored the material reality that exists, resulting in bad deals for the consumers and creators alike. Only the pockets of the middlemen get filled, as they make promises that only if they had a bit more support from everyone, the wealth would trickle down to the people who've actually earned it, the people who make the anime. And for the consumer, we get shoddy service, paying for betas, slow connection, low quality videos, no download capabilities, region locks, exclusive license, haphazardly mingled together, unupdated, and low quality subs. The openings and endings aren't even subbed, like, fan subbers do this shit. Terrible layout designs, bullshit ads and ad placements, and perhaps worst of all, a social media presence, whose main goal seems to be moralizing, being utterly and disgustingly cringy. Leaving the subjective issues aside, the control Crunchyroll has on the Western anime industry is outrageous, especially considering how none of these technical problems have been fixed in years. Of course, a mountain's worth of PR money has been spent to trick a large majority of anime fans into committing to using both Crunchyroll and illegal sites. I'm but a humble man versus the propaganda power of a large corporation. Nonetheless, I will not sit idly while the injustice continues. This moral argument will be ended once and for all. But this isn't just an argument for why it should fall, but why it will. It cannot be sustained by the material reality that exists. Before we can ask whether it is better to be lawful or good, we must know what is good. Good is what is best for the people. I choose to be good. I choose to represent the people. Exploitation and Reaganomics. When you give a small group of people more money, they end up with more money. And it's easier to make money when you have money. People generally want more money. Therefore, it is in the best interest for any small group of people to convince others to give them money by any means necessary, even promising to give some to others later, even if they won't. This is the true nature and motive behind trickle-down economics. It has failed to meet its outward promises everywhere, but its true purpose has always been a success. More money for the rich and powerful. Now, you maybe would think humans will learn, but if you did, you haven't been paying attention. Many today still fall for the blatant lies of trickle-down economics, hook, line, and sinker. Unfortunately, this line of thinking is also continuously used by legal sites like Krusty Shit in order to convince the gullible and the brainwashed that this will help animators. Of course, what historically happens is what happens again here. The executives pocket most of the money as profits, having easily extracted the surplus value of the poor animators' labor, and any money that they actually do reinvest back into the industry only goes to producing more of the product with no increase in wage. Right-wingers and other capitalist defenders will tell you that the value of a worker's labor should go up along with their wage. After all, supposedly, in a free market, that's the way it's supposed to work. What they often fail to include in their economic analysis is that the process of determining a wage doesn't start with trade, but with production. The worker and the capitalist do not start off on equal footing. The capitalist owns the means of production acquired through violence at some point in history, while the worker needs a job to survive. The capitalist can choose from one of millions, and so long as the workers themselves don't determine the standard wage, capitalists will take whatever chump, will accept the lowest, and move on from there. The trade of the free market doesn't start on even terms, which of course leads into unions.
Communism forever.
Going back to the topic at hand, animators are paid below the minimum wage, and often are overworked to the point of literal death. The hardcore capitalists will say they made the decision to work in such conditions, completely ignoring or excusing structural ills, as they tend to. But as we already established, outside of pure, admiral love of animation, the economic isolation and alienation of Japanese animators from each other keep the power in the hands of the bourgeoisie. In the past, this is where you would see unions forming, as workers become more class conscious. However, capitalism as an institution has had many years to adapt. But what Marx got wrong is that the class is not the single most important motive, even if it's the defining characteristic of an age. People can be separated by race, gender, and nationality, and be taught from a young age to accept the status quo. While the Japanese mindset of conformism and collectivism gives it many strengths that put it above other nations, it makes social reform difficult. Add to this the specific conservative movement in Japan, which is strong and naturally supports right-wing economics. This is all not to mention the extreme risk aversion that society has adopted in the postmodern era. Rocking the boat by forming unions seems to be tantamount to treason. But collectivism is also its strength, as I said. It allows for it to be that when society reform does happen, it's on a massive scale, quick, and the entire society can reorientate. We've seen this historically many times, from the establishment of the Tokugawa shogunate to the Meiji Restoration. Japan is slow to change, but can change radically when need to be, i.e. when outside pressure is exerted. Opposite to the past, American investment into the country is helping to keep it stagnant instead of change. Only an outside shock to the system will spark the change that needs to happen in Japan. The issue is not that illegal sites are morally superior, it's that the whole established framework of how anime is made should be scrapped and restructured to support the workers. That means not supporting legal sites and getting money directly into the hands of laborers. What is to be done? So how do we do that? How do we help lay the groundwork for co-op and union movement in Japan? And why did I say Crunchy shit was doomed at the start regardless? The answer to both of these questions lie in one recent development, the establishment of a Patreon for Studio Trigger. Now, the Trigger Patreon has started, and it's not like directly funding anime or anything, and it doesn't seem like animators are directly like pocketing the money spent in the Trigger Patreon, as if it was enough to pay them to begin with. But it's a better start than what Crusty Shit's doing, and that is financial independence. It's allowing them to sell like more merchandise, and that would help the studio as well. Anime shouldn't become mainstream in the West for a variety of reasons, but the most important is that it won't totally change the way media distribution platforms function, or totally change the way that the anime industry functions. And if you truly care about anime, you must care about the people who make it. If the status quo is God, we must do what Japanese like to portray in their own media a lot, and slay it.
Be gone.
Preposterous! You dare rob the people's wishes?